Hello everyone and welcome back to Sudden Wealth. I do hope you're having a wonderful day. If you do enjoy the content, please consider dropping that like and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel, so thank you very much. Now, quick update on the bond market. This is recorded on Thursday, which means the bond market is still going further down. As I mentioned, that is the leader. The rest follows. And not sure if you're going to see a bottom yet, but we are already starting to see some signs from central banks which are concerned. Now, there are already some rumors in Europe about rate cuts. The Fed already said that they will cut rates, probably cut rates before they hit the inflation target of 2%. And China is already cutting rates. Now, why is this happening? Look, if it was up to the central banks, I do think they want to get out of this game of micromanaging the economy, with rate hikes here, rate cuts there, coming in, coming out. I do think they want to get out. Now, China's situation is different. Because it's a dictatorship, there is a bargain between the people and the government, which is something like this. We have no freedom. We live in a dictatorship. However, our standard of living goes higher. That's the deal. What is the problem with this? It does not allow the government to go under recessions. Why? Because then one side of the bargain is not completed. So people will just say, oh, then I want freedom since I already don't have the prosperity on one end. Now, what is the big issue with this? Every business cycle, everything in life has an up period and a down period. It's part of the process. It's actually helpful. You need to get rid of dying bad businesses so the good businesses can flourish. That's the basis of capitalism and how we became wealthy in the first place. But in the case of a dictatorship like in China, you cannot allow it because in the West, for example, or in non-dictatorships, you can just elect someone new, and that's it. If you don't like someone, if someone is doing something they shouldn't, some politicians are actually caught up just by the business cycle, and they get blamed for things which are not really their fault. But you can always elect a new person, and that's the end of it. But in dictatorships like China, that doesn't work. So they need to come up with all the strategies they can to never have recessions, at least on paper, and to find ways to prop up their markets. So that's why they are cutting rates once again, and that's why they are back to money printing. They've also been flirting with deflation already, and the business deceleration. Now, I've said this before. Everyone seems to be in agreement that China will overtake the US, will become the number one economy. There's no stopping China. The US has its time, and now it's China's time, etc. I've mentioned this before, that this sounds a lot to me like the Japanese in the 80s, that the argument was being made the same for Japan. And I see the same issues with China. The real estate bubble problem, the over-indebtedness, the aggressive expansion, the over-leveraging. I see all the same issues that I did see with Japan, with an announcement of the fact that it's a dictatorship, so they need to go crazy in order to keep recessions at bay. So I do think some problems will arise from China, which everyone seems to agree that can do no wrong and will be the leaders of the world. Now, in the case of Europe, you already see the cracks. The Dutch economy is in recession now. The German economy is also in recession, and the other economies are either in recession or close to it. So there are already talks about rate cuts. The US seems to be the exception, in which the economy seems to still be working well, at least based on their numbers. In reality, maybe a different story. Because you also see at the same time credit card debt at all-time highs. So how much exactly is this true? And then when you actually look at the employment numbers, you see that a lot of people are taking second and third jobs because one job no longer covers it, and even some people coming back from retirement because their retirement scheme no longer works anymore as well. So is that really a sign of a strong economy? I leave that up to you to decide. So the Fed may endure a bit longer, but I do think eventually they will need to cut rates, but not because why most people think. So most people think we're gonna have a recession still this year. I don't think so, but we'll see. But I do think the problem is that the government side is not helping the Fed. So because they keep having these crazy budget deficits and these crazy trade deficits, the Fed eventually will need to cut rates. Otherwise, the US government will not be able to pay interest on their debt, particularly if their debt keeps increasing and compounding every year. So I do think rate cuts will come next year in the US. China already happened. And China was one of the main things that I've talked about in previous videos that you could see some cracks coming from. And I do think Europe will be next. So thank you very much, guys. That is it for this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.